through our session and you're hearing the panelists share any message, what they're saying, pop a question in there and we definitely will be able to address it at the very end with you, okay? So this morning we have with us Shane Grenley, and he is from Desigual. We also have Camille Cooler, and she is from Guerrilla Commerce. And shortly we're going to have Kyle Oliveira joining us from Luxury Leaf. So to get us going, if go ahead and put up the panel with the photographs so everyone can see who our participants are. And some of you may know them already from TMD Night. We had a TMD Night, so many of them have participated in the past in Career Day. But every time we hear from them, it's definitely a great wealth of information. So we're excited to have each of them with us here. To get us going, let's go ahead and start with some introductions, and we will start with Camille.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Camille Cooler. I graduated from URI in 2013 with a Bachelor's of Science in Textile Fashion Merchandising. I then later went and got my master's. So in 2016, I graduated from the University of Phoenix with my MBA in business. I started working full-time in the fashion industry in 2014 as an allocation analyst. I moved through a few companies and I worked into financial merchandise planning. And now I work for Guerrilla Commerce as a manager of supply planning.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you so much, Camille. Really greatly appreciate your intro. And we will go on to Shane, please.
Hi, everyone. I graduated in 2002, so a little bit longer than 13. I have a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Rhode Island. I actually worked at the Warwick Mall part-time in retail with Abercrombie and Fitch. From there, kind of worked my way up into a regional manager for 5 to 6 years with them. And originally not wanting to be in retail, but kind of fell into it, started with the manager in training, went to the assistant manager, store manager, general manager, regional. And then from there, Urban Outfitters oversaw all of their flagship locations in New York City. They transferred me out to Los Angeles, to Santa Monica, and I did the West Coast for them. Then from there, worked for Armani, doing their brand on the West Coast, expanding them based out of Los Angeles. And then from there, was recruited to work with BCBG and Hervé Leger and Max Azria. Did their runway shows, did their wholesale, and was based out of New York City. And then from there, was recruited in to bring a new brand into the United States called Carlo Pasolini, a high-end shoe brand, opened 18 locations throughout the United States. And then now to my current role with Desigual, I oversee North America from Canada, the US, and Mexico. We have 3 online platforms, wholesale, retail, and I'm the president of North America.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shane. And I believe we have Kyle. He actually dialed in. So Kyle, we're going through introductions. I already mentioned, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit of your background. Okay. And as you know, in Zoom world, sometimes a glitch or two may occur. So Erin, should we just go ahead and jump into questions?
Sure, let's do that.
Awesome, perfect.
Hello?
Oh, Kyle, perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we definitely can.
Great. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I actually just graduated college 2 years ago. I attended the Bryant University. So I graduated there with a major in finance, a concentration in applied analytics, and a minor in economics. And with that degree, I kind of went into the banking industry. I started off as a retail banker. I got all my licenses, so I was able to provide customers with financial advice and also just everyday banking advice. Recently, I actually got promoted to a financial analyst at Citizens Bank. So while I'm working at the bank on the side, I'm also working on my businesses, which I'll talk more about later on. But just so you guys know, my business is hemp clothing. So I took my passion for fashion and created an eco-friendly clothing brand. So that's a little bit about myself.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kyle, for sharing. So let's go ahead and jump into our questions. And I know each of our panelists is going to have a wealth of information to offer. So remember, as we're going through any question that pops up, just pop it into that chat box and we can definitely address it at the end of our session. So to start off our first question, what aspect of your work are you most excited about now and why? And we'll start off with Shane.
I think that the omnichannel experience, I mean, from perspective of, for example, right now we're doing a collaboration with Kristen McCraw. He is a well-known designer in the European market. He did couture, and we launched it about 2 weeks ago. So a perspective of having the online launch, the brick and mortar launch, the wholesale launch, and then essentially ever Instagram, Facebook, having the allocation at the right locations, really encompassing the team and working as a whole. The excitement and the passion, as you guys are aware of with COVID, everything is predominantly online. So really, gravitating towards what does the consumer understand about the brand and what drives them to purchase the brand. And one of our great successes has been our collaborations, but really how do we essentially navigate that to the right consumer at the right time. So the excitement and passion that I have is kind of working with the team together, encompassing, one mission, and driving that to see the results of the consumer. Right now, it's doing very well. We've sold out to Peace in a couple items. And obviously with everything going on, to have some good wins and successes really resonates with the team and also helps the pride, but most importantly, the consumer ownership. And obviously everyone's fighting for every dollar at this point, so really truly understanding what drives the consumer, and most importantly, when you really work with your team to orchestrate the design of the product, the marketing, and you see a success, you really have a gratifying partnership, and it's not just yourself, but most importantly your team.
Awesome, thank you. Wow, you touched on so many terms that I know our TMD students are hearing consistently. So I'm so excited that you mentioned a lot of them, and we'll come back to those in a minute. And Kyle, how about you?
Yeah, for me, in my business, I primarily work B2B. So my business is really selling promotional apparel to other businesses or even uniforms for employees. So what I'm excited about most is actually being able to see people again. I'm really excited about this vaccine rollout and the progress that we're making. And in my business, sales is a huge piece of the puzzle, right? So for me, the most interesting thing is getting to meet new people, hear their stories, because everybody does have a unique story, and that's very powerful. So I'm excited to go back to conventions in the hemp world, meet new people, see the kind of innovation that's going on in the industry, and really just spread the message to as many people who are willing to listen. That's the most important thing for me, and the most exciting is educating people, and opportunities like this, as well as conventions, networking events. That's really what I'm most excited about, is really getting my boots on the ground and getting in front of new people.
Awesome. Yes, that exchange is so key. It is so key. Camille.
So I have a similar answer. I get really excited seeing the business results. So this time last year, I was laid off from New York & Company because of COVID. They were mainly a brick and mortar store. So I spent the majority of last summer trying to find a new position, and I landed at Guerrilla Commerce. And this has been the most exciting company I think I've worked for in my whole career. They're seeing upwards of 90% year-over-year growth. We're launching so many new products. Most of what we do is home and home textiles. So if you have a couch or a couch cushion, we make covers for them and things of that nature. And our products are mostly sold on Amazon. So Amazon drives consumerism. A lot of what we do is at the mercy of Amazon. So it's just interesting to watch everything change every day. I can wake up and Amazon could have implemented something new for its sellers, and that could totally change what I do for the rest of my week. So it's ever changing. Also, when I'm watching the sales, just seeing where we have gaps, anything that we can be capitalizing on, anything that we're missing, finding the products that maybe haven't been pushed to the furthest and we could go a little further. So it's a lot of analytical digging in, but it's so much fun to be a part of something that's working in a time where a lot of things aren't.
Definitely. And you know, I think each of you touched upon how this COVID has made us reevaluate. So it is an exciting time. It is an exciting time. You know, you have your ups and downs, but it is an exciting time for the industry. Let's move on then to our second question. What are some skills students should develop during their academic career in preparation for the job market that they're going to be facing? And let's start off with Kyle, please. Kyle?
Hello?
Yes, there you go.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes.
I don't know. So thank you for the question. I think that's a great question, by the way, especially now with the pandemic, and that's kind of forcing employers to look for different skills in students. So one thing that I think hasn't changed, and I don't think will change, and I consider to be one of the most important skills, is communication, written and verbal. I think that if students can really hone in on their communication skills, one, they'll be able to increase their salaries significantly, but also they'll be able to be more effective in the workplace. And that goes as far as doing their job, but also kind of influencing people on their team to, get things done in the right manner. So I would say communication is definitely one of the biggest skills that students should learn and develop. And then secondly, I'd say empathy and listening. A lot of kids, and myself included, it's hard to actually put yourself in another person's shoes and really empathize with their story and their current situation. So if you can do that, then you're in a much better place to kind of communicate with that person. So empathy, active listening, communication, those I think would be the top three. And then just some other things that I want to mention is know what your strengths are. Don't focus so much on your weaknesses and trying to improve those. I would say double down on your strengths and kind of hire around your weaknesses. If you are entrepreneurially gifted, I would say hire around your weaknesses. And whether you're joining a team as an employee, know your role and be the best at that, and have the rest of your team kind of pick up the slack in where you aren't the best. So I would say those are some secondary things that are important, but overall communication, listening, and empathy, those are definitely the top three.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Camille?
Yeah, so I had a similar answer again. I was going to say open communication and collaboration. It's so important when you're working on a team that everyone effectively communicates. Otherwise, things will get missed and you'll miss deadlines, you'll miss sales. So ultimately, it comes down to sales. And if you're not making them, that's not good. Next, I was going to say that, you're in college, but everything that I do is in Excel. So that's a different strength that you're going to need. I didn't do a lot of Excel work in college, and I got thrown into my first job, and it was a lot of learn all of these functions and how to do them, because you're going to use them all day, every day. And now we build spreadsheets, we build macros, we don't use systems, we use Excel. So if you can really hone in on like those skills when you're in school still, you'll be a huge asset to a company straight out of school. And then lastly, I was going to say problem solving. So don't just bring problems to your manager, bring a solution. Even if it's not the right one or they don't use it, they don't want you to say, hey, this doesn't work. They want you to say, hey, this doesn't work, and here's why, and here's what I'm thinking we could do to fix it. And then they'll take that and they'll run with it. And you might not ever get credit, but they're watching and they're listening. And one day you'll get a raise or a bonus or a promotion because of it. So people aren't going to pat you on the back along the way, but they do acknowledge it when the time comes.
Awesome. I love the mention of Excel, by the way. I think that is so like right up there right now.
I really like in college, it really wasn't a thing when I was there. Like it was just starting. And then I got my first job and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? So,
I agree. I agree. Shane.
All great answers. And I think also just to kind of piggyback on that, it's just confidence. And the one thing that I see is everyone is behind a screen, obviously not necessarily from COVID, but the lack of confidence that I see in individuals and the interviewing skills and just the vulnerability. And I think people are underestimating the value of, working in retail, working at, Starbucks, bartender, working out there and just working in the public eye. And I know obviously COVID, to take that aside, but just understanding what drives the consumer and even from a perspective of any aspect of a job, and don't underestimate just working on the sales floor and just looking at the behind the scenes of any company and how they roll out product and ultimately what does sell, and from a perspective of visual merchandising and from lighting and from essentially what you're told on the sales floor and does it work. And I think that kind of goes into your life experience. And yes, everyone is going to have a degree at the end of these 4 years, which is absolutely great, but they're also going to be looking at you. And I think that's what, for what everyone's talking about is that you have to be yourself and really have confidence in what you want, but most importantly, allow yourself to be vulnerable to learn. And, when we're looking at applications at any different level, I want to see your life experience. I also want to see a little bit about you and what makes you tick. Because I think ultimately right now with COVID, unfortunately, we had to lay off some individuals. We had to move people around. We had to, revisit. A couple of people I had to add on more responsibility. And some people raised to the occasion were like, absolutely, I've never thought that I like this, but now I love it, and I'd like to tailor my career into this. So you never know where it's going to go. And I think the most important thing is just the customer service side of it and the confidence level, and not to be afraid to, at this point, really have any kind of role prior to getting, landing the perfect role, because life experience is so important for any aspect to be successful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shane. That's so key. Life experience really does speak a lot. So getting your hands in there and just that exposure and putting yourself out there, I think that's very key. Thank you so much for that. Let's go on to our third question, and we'll start with Camille with this one. How has the industry changed since you started, and where do you see the industry within the next 5 to 10 years as far as innovations are concerned?
Yeah, so this was a really good one to think about because since I started my career in 2014, I've worked for 5 different retailers, 3 of which have gone out of business. So it's really come a long way because when I started, everything was driven by brick and mortar. We have 500 stores, 1,000 stores. We need to open more stores every month, more stores. And then as my career progressed, it was we're closing more stores. We need more online. We need more people for e-com, less brick and mortar. You always want to be on the e-com team because if you're on the brick and mortar team, you might get laid off. So it's been changing a lot. And like I mentioned, Amazon is so I work for Guerrilla Commerce, but our platform that we sell on is Amazon. We're a top 50 supplier for them. And they've changed consumerism. People want their goods tomorrow, today. So it's really hard for every other retailer who's playing catch up. And if you can't meet that demand, you're going to get beat. So going off of that, a lot of what we do now is computer driven and programs where you have a lot of systems. We use NetSuite and JDA and RBI. So we have a lot of systems. But when I started, it was a spreadsheet and math. Like, just do some math. Maybe you need 1,000 pieces or 10,000 pieces based on your sales. But now the computer tells me, okay, you need to order this much and it needs to come on this day. And really what I'm doing is just, where are the outliers and where are the opportunities? So I think in the future, everything's just going to be more streamlined than it already has become. It's going to be solely heavily driven on systems and computers, but you're still going to need the people for the customer service and the thought process, because computers do make mistakes, and they don't always understand trends like the people do.
That's a great mention. It's like the meshing of the human with the computer. Shane.
Exactly what I was going to say too. I mean, just from my current experience in the last 7 years, we closed about 10 stores and relocated, I think 12. And what that would entail is really a smaller location to be more profitable. And at the beginning of, when I first came on, the expectations, they wanted to open 50 stores. And now, we are really revisiting that. And we're defining the experience in store so much different than we did before. And it's really about the human interaction. It's really about the elevation of the brand. It's more about flagship locations. So it's more of a memorable experience rather than even selling the clothes, because you want to redefine the branding. And most importantly, you want to elevate the experience. Right now, we're actually elevating our price point. Our price point was about 150, and now we're at about 200. So we're not luxury, but we're mid-level. And to have that level of service and that price point, it really has to train the consumer differently. So it's very easy to put out online who we are and what we want to be, but in store and elevating the brand is probably the biggest thing. And from there, I think, exactly what Camille was saying is that the logistics side of it has probably changed the drastic side from just the past couple of years, and drop shipping, and when are we going to get the product to the consumer and how fast. A lot of, from a wholesale perspective, people do not want to buy in bulk. And, for example, we would sell our wholesale division 6 months, 8 months prior, and now they want us to hold it in our warehouse and then we ship it to their consumer. So for example, we sell to Macy's and Bloomingdale's. And in the past, they would have a huge purchase order 6 to 8 months prior, and which is great. They'd sell it at wholesale, they would have it in their warehouse. But now everything has changed, and they want us to keep it all in our logistic warehouses. And then when their consumer purchases it, we have to send it to their consumer. So that obviously is a lot more cost, but you also don't want to lose that partnership. So then you do that. So the whole infrastructure logistically has drastically changed, from the front of the house, from the back of the house, how efficient you have to be. So there's so many learnings in the sense that before it was really about exactly the Excel spreadsheet and, kind of just very simple math. Now it's about, from a global perspective, and specifically with COVID, we manufacture our clothes in all around the world, and getting the better deal from the actual production and the logistics is so much more important, because it really affects the bottom line and the price point. So right now we are looking at opening, actually, instead of having huge warehouses, we're having larger locations in our flagship locations and using them as warehouses to minimize the warehouses in actually United States, to get to the product faster, limit our costs, and then allow the consumer to benefit. So many changes behind behind the front of the house, in the sense of what the consumer sees, that we've never really had to do until COVID, but it has allowed us to be a lot more efficient, and allow to service the client faster too.
Wow, I love that. The e-commerce thing. I'll give you a quick tidbit, and many of the students know at TMD, we now actually, next semester in fall, we're offering a new course called Branding in the Fashion Industry. And last fall, we introduced a course called Fashion E-commerce. So our students are definitely on that same mind frame. So this is fantastic news to hear, these innovations. Awesome. Thank you, Shane. Kyle.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank Shane, Camille, awesome job touching on kind of some of those trends that I think COVID accelerated. I think, technology has always been a crucial part to this industry, especially now. Everything's headed online, and you guys touched on that. People are converting their retail storefronts into warehouses for distribution. The rise of drop shipping, the rise of fast fashion, all of those trends have kind of led us to where we are now. So I kind of want to take a different approach in what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to talk about sustainability. When I first started my clothing company, there was no talk of sustainability at the time. There was nobody doing it, nobody exploring it. And this was about 6 years ago in 2015 when I first started exploring the fashion industry. 33% of all garments are made of cotton, which I don't know how educated you guys might be, but cotton is one of the most polluting crops in the industry. It accounts for 25% of the world's pesticides. It requires tons of water to grow. So it's very polluting. And on top of that, all the other fabrics are polluting as well. Polyester, nylon, all these synthetic fibers are terrible. So what I've seen in terms of change is people starting to become cognizant of the pollution in the industry. And now I think every brand is starting to take strides in terms of addressing those problems. Companies are starting to use more sustainable materials. There's innovations in Mexico, people using vegan cactus leather. There's pineapple leather. All these kind of amazing creations that wouldn't have happened if there wasn't such a big problem. So when I think about the industry and kind of what the future holds, I definitely see those trends of technology and automation, but I also see a shift to more sustainable fabrics, more sustainable supply chains, more sustainable everything, right down to the packaging that, these goods are getting shipped out in, right down to the fuels that, the delivery couriers are using to drive to deliver. So that's what I see. I think Camille and Shane did a great job on touching on the kind of logistics and technology side of things. But I think this was very important to mention because not only do we see this trend in the fashion industry, but we see it across almost every industry. So I do believe in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see a large adoption of other natural and eco-friendly fibers. But a little bit biased here, but I do think hemp will be the primary source of eco-friendly fibers, and which is why I decided to get in the industry. But that's a topic for another day. So I think that pretty much covers it. We're definitely going to see a rise in more social media marketing, online shopping. I do see virtual reality helping shape this industry. Like I said, COVID kind of accelerated these trends, and some brands are already doing this. Through Snapchat filters, etc. They allow customers and consumers to actually go ahead and try on outfits to, see what they look like before they even have to go out and buy or even leave the comfort of their own home. So a lot of interesting stuff happening, and I'm very excited to see where we are in 5 to 10 years and see if our kind of predictions come true.
Awesome. Kyle, thank you so much. You talked about a topic that is really important and dear and close to our heart here in TMD, because we have several students actually working towards a minor in sustainability. One of our main 100 level courses actually touches on that to begin to provide exposure to students in the understanding and importance of this in our industry and how it impacts many others. So I was very happy to hear you bring that and mention that because it's such an important topic for all of us right now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, so I actually have, before we jump into our Q&A with students, and remember everyone, go ahead and pop your questions there into the chat. So this is a time to now kind of reflect on everything you've heard. Go ahead and type some questions, and as you begin to do so, I have one or two, and I'll open it up to our 3 panelists that really just brought my mind to these topics of with the industry, when you go out to interview, I know some of our students are looking for those tidbits, and we heard about confidence, and I think that's such a key thing. One thing that I inquire, especially with many students, we have students in design and then some in merchandising, portfolio work. How important is a portfolio aside from just the resume and their cover letters? How important is portfolios for students now?
I mean, I'll take it from a design perspective and marketing. It's huge. Ultimately, not only your resume, but who you are really is going to paint a picture on if you're going to get the first interview. And the process is submitting the portfolio first and resume. We have a program where students can participate in those that we do a internship with. And that's really solely based on all of their portfolio first and then question. So I think that it determines on obviously the actual position entails. More operational is more about the resume, and more obviously focused from a marketing perspective and design would be all portfolio.
Perfect, thank you. Camille, you want to chime in?
So from my perspective, I didn't have a resume. I wasn't in the design side of TMD. So getting my careers was solely based on my resume, not a portfolio. But I will say it's important to have all of those pieces, because I started a little Etsy shop last year when I got laid off. And that's part of the reason my company now hired me, because they liked that I did something else with my time while I wasn't fully employed. So it's just good to be able to show you as a whole person, not just a piece of paper.
Well, I like that. Not, you yourself, not just because the paper says so much, but when you see that person, it can definitely speak volumes. That's great. Kyle, did you want to chime in on portfolios for students?
Yeah, just piggybacking off what Camille said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you can come up with a portfolio with a couple of different examples of your work, that's going to speak volumes. And not only that, it will also give the employer a sense of your personality. A lot of times you can artwork has personality, and generally the person who's creating that artwork is the one giving that art a personality, which is probably the same personality they have. So that's definitely one reason why I think portfolios is important, because it kind of gives the employer another side of you. But also, anything you can do to go above and beyond in terms of showing your employer how bad you want this position and how much of a good fit you are, I think that's gonna, help you out tremendously. Specifically, well, like I said, I have a full-time job at Citizens Bank as a financial analyst. If I'm showing them my artwork, they're probably not going to be too impressed, because it's not relatable to the role that I have. So I'd say, definitely be cognizant in terms of the relevance for the position you're applying for. Definitely have that self-awareness and say, hey, like, is my artwork really going to matter if I'm going to be working with spreadsheets all day? Probably not. But if you are seeking a position in marketing or design, graphic design, I'd say a portfolio is pretty crucial. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Perfect, thank you. We actually have a question from one of our students. This is actually one of our graduates. Poonam, if you want to go ahead and just unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
Yeah, my question is like, I want to get a job in merchandising, and I do some stuff with Tableau, and I think it's pretty cool. But I don't have a way to show people what all stuff I can do, with the visualization, data visualization. So I was wondering if I sort of make a portfolio of that, and or just like show what all I can do with data. And how can I show it to the prospective employer? So something like portfolio, but should I include make a website or have a digital platform where I put all my stuff and linked it to my resume?
I have an answer. So I think that's a great question. And then, I've never really thought about it from that perspective. How would you show a company your data set and how you can handle data? I think your LinkedIn profile is a great way for you to showcase it, where you can post links to online spreadsheets that maybe you've done and just say like, hey, in case anyone's looking for a how-to, I've done this before. And that I've noticed a lot of recruiters and employers look at everything you post on LinkedIn. So that's already a platform that's there for you. And then also the wording that you use in your resume, you can generally talk through what you know in data within your resume. So how I got a lot of my interviews is just the wording that I used and explaining what I know through my bullet points at each job. And then it gets their interest. So then once you get that call in that first interview, you really just dive right in and start going and just telling them everything that you know and really showing all your strengths.
Thank you.
Awesome. That is a great question. As we've mentioned, we live in such a digital world as well. How do you get this, especially with COVID? Now we don't walk around with portfolio work. We have to showcase this some way. So we have to be very, very creative. And with creativity comes a question about internships now. We have a lot of students that are juniors and seniors, and they're having to become very creative on locating internships. Can anyone offer any tips and advice on that?
Yeah, I can definitely chime in on this. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just need to make sure. So I'd say this really has to do with the law of averages. In my experience, like I said, I'm fresh out of college 2 years ago. Obviously, when I was entering the job market, there was no pandemic. It wasn't, as hard as it is now. But I think the moral of the story applies regardless, and that is it's about consistency. I had to apply to over 100 different jobs before I even got an interview. So, think about that. The first place you apply to, it might not be the place that's going to offer you a job. And just because someone says no, that doesn't mean that they don't value you as a person, and you shouldn't take a rejection as you're not good enough. You simply it just wasn't a right fit. So I'd say apply to as many different places as you can and get a job. And then from there, you can progress and find that dream job that you want. Not everybody starts off in the best position, especially college graduates. We're entry level. We're not going to have the best jobs in the world. We're going to be, doing stuff that not everybody wants to do. But at the end of the day, it's having that humility and being okay with being where you are for a short time, and just knowing that if you keep doing your job and keep giving it your best, someone is going to see that and they're going to give you a promotion. Or you take the knowledge that you learned from that job and you bring it to a different employer and do, new things for them and get a better position. So I'd say apply. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't apply anywhere. So I definitely say that is the biggest thing. And then also go above and beyond, right? LinkedIn, I heard it mentioned, is a super powerful platform. You can literally connect with almost any individual from almost any company. Find the position you want, figure out who the recruiter is, message them on LinkedIn, go above and beyond. And I guarantee you that is going to help you out in the long run.
Awesome. Kyle, thank you. You hit it on right there. Go above and beyond. You have to stand out. It's that competitive advantage. What makes you different? What's going to make you stand out? I think your response was just on point. Thank you so much for sharing that. I don't know, Camille or Shane, did you want to jump in and add on to that?
Sure. So what I wanted to say is also Rhode Island has a lot of internships there. I did my internship when I was a junior in college, the summer in between junior and senior year in Newport. And it wasn't directly related to my major, but it was just working in a store and learning behind the scenes and the books and how the merchandise comes and goes. So it was also unpaid and it wasn't very glamorous. So I know it gets built up that you have this degree and you're going to be some important person, and one day you will, but when you're interning, you're really just looking for experience and getting kind of down and dirty and just doing what you can when you can to get it on your resume.
Shane.
And I think also to kind of point what you guys both brought up is that if there's a company that you actually are interested in, reach out via LinkedIn or via email and go onto the website to HR and ask about the internships. Because I think ultimately, people want go-getters. People want people to think outside the box. And, today, everyone is scared to kind of have a conversation or even start. But I would say have the confidence to reach out and just introduce yourself. I just want to let you know that I'm graduating in next year or this year. I really love the brand. I'm an avid shopper of the brand. I like the collaboration that you're usually working with. Is there any interns or entry level positions that I could be thought of as, or is it possible just to connect with you, for a conversation? Everyone really values the human interaction as long as you do it in a professional way, and most importantly, back it up with a legitimate interest. So I don't think there's one destination I would like to say that are great for internships or even jobs. So I think LinkedIn is such an amazing opportunity. But recently, I've had friends that have been laid off in the field, all different levels, and a lot of them just reached out to actually their employer or new people from their network. And going on to LinkedIn and you're saying, okay, this person works at this company. Maybe that they're essentially, not in your field, but they work for the company. You can reach out to them and just introduce yourself as a human being and say, listen, I've recently been laid off, or I'm excited, or, I'm going to graduate in a year. Do you have any advice? Would you mind if we had a coffee or a conversation? So I think it's just the approach and how you take it. I've had people reach out to me and ask, could we connect? I've, had people reach out to me for positions. I immediately either take their resume or I send it to HR. I had people, wanting to go to Spain or go into another country, and I will forward that information to the right HR person. So today, step one, you guys are doing an amazing job just networking and being on this call. Step two is you get to a point where I feel like you go to elementary school, and then you go to middle school, and then you go to college, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what's next? And you feel like you really are on your own, and you have support. And I know the program does such an amazing resources and gives you such like today. But realize you have to put yourself out there, and you're only going to get what you want by trying. And I'm a big believer in that. By you putting yourself out there, you're going to find out exactly what you want sooner than if you didn't. And I think Kyle said too, sometimes we have this image of what the first ideal job is. And, I read to one of the jobs, I was working on the sales floor at Abercrombie, and then they offered me a manager position. And at that point, was going to go to New York City and work for Smith and Barney. And I was like, I like these people and I really like this, and I don't know where it's going to go. But now I'm president of a company, and I literally started on the sales floor as a manager in training. So I really do believe that any experience is great, vulnerability, confidence, and really putting yourself out there. And don't be afraid to send an email or have a conversation. And I think both Camille and Kyle said, LinkedIn is such a great resource to really elevate your resume, your portfolio. This is really essentially, your cheerleader program. This is going to allow you to leverage you in so many different ways. So, I applaud all of you guys on this call. I do think that it can be challenging. Don't give up, and realize that the more you put yourself out there and really be who you are and really show that, true identity, you are going to get so much more interaction faster.
Wow. Great responses from each of our panelists, and your responses actually prompted a lot of questions from our students. So I'm very happy to see our chat is pretty full. So that's good. Let's go to Morgan. She actually has a question specifically, I guess, for Kyle. Morgan, if you could go ahead and unmute and ask your question, please.
Yeah, hi. So I'm actually one of the students pursuing a sustainability minor, as well as the DMD major. So I was wondering for Kyle, like if there was a specific like instance or something that got you interested in sustainability, or if it was just you kind of saw a gap in the industry because you said like you didn't see many companies pursuing sustainability. So I was just interested in how you kind of got interested in that.
Yeah, great question, by the way. So that actually brings me back to like 2015. I was in my college dorm room. I had just gotten assigned an economics project, and the project was to discuss the implications of legalizing marijuana. So, what would that mean for taxes? Obviously, it would go up. But through that project, I discovered hemp. And I discovered that hemp is different than marijuana. It's an industrial crop. It has, the potential to save the world, basically. But one of the uses that it has was to make clothing that was eco-friendly, that didn't require much water, that didn't require much pesticides, and that was overall just good for people and the planet. So that's when I kind of discovered sustainability and that clothing could even be sustainable in the first place. I mean, most people don't think about that, right? Most people don't think about like, how are my clothes made? What chemicals went into, make this color dye that I'm wearing. And that project really just opened up my eyes. And then from that day on, it was just, I just became obsessed with hemp and all of the different applications it has. I mean, it has over 50,000 known uses. Those are just the ones we know about. So it was just an amazing crop, and every day I learned more stuff about it, and it truly is just super impressive. So that's what kind of opened my eyes to sustainability. I was always interested in fashion. In high school, I won the superlative for best dress. So I was always interested in fashion, always had sneakers. You can call me a sneakerhead. I have a sneaker boutique as well. So always interested in fashion. But when I discovered hemp and its potential, that's when, my life pretty much changed for the better.
Wow, awesome. Thank you, Kyle. We have actually two questions from Kara. Kara, if you can go ahead and unmute and you can ask.
Hi, everyone. So I wanted to ask, what was your first job out of college and how did you land that position? And what is something that you wish somebody would have told you at that point? Any kind of advice that would help you in the long run?
And this we can open for any of our panelists. Shane, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of what I said before, I worked during college at Abercrombie, and then I went up from a sales associate to a manager in training. I think ultimately, it allowed me to kind of grow and to realize, and at that point, and to be totally transparent, when you were a district manager, you were able to get a Jeep Wrangler. And I was never allowed to have a Jeep Wrangler. My parents would never allow me to have it. So that motivated me to, pursue that and to, be a district manager at that level. And that was like my passion. Whatever I did and whatever I wanted to do, it was to get that. And, I learned so much from an understanding. Advice, I think the big thing is just try and just ask and realize that, you're not, failing is not, it's okay, and getting what you want, it will lead you in the direction of something better. But you have to put yourself out there, you have to be vulnerable, and most importantly, try and realize that every job that you have, you're going to either meet someone, or you're going to gain experience, or you're going to build more confidence that is going to put you in the right position or a better position of ultimately what's going to make you happy in the long run. So there is no wrong position. I think ultimately you just have to put yourself out there and get experience first, get some paychecks, get an understanding of, what is going to motivate you to try more, but most importantly, putting yourself out there.
Awesome. Camille, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, so following what Shane just said about putting yourself out there. So my first job out of college, I actually worked for Alex and Ani in Bloomingdale. So it was like a B2B business. I just ran like a table of their bracelets and did sales. And that was just for a few months. And while I was doing that, just to collect a paycheck, I was living at home with my parents, still applying to jobs. I was like, I went to school. I should be able to get a real job. I shouldn't have to work in a store anymore. That's what I thought to myself. And I finally got offered a job, and it was in Georgia. And I was so disappointed because it sounded like a great job, but I was like, man, I don't want to move to Georgia. I'm in New Jersey. My family's in New Jersey. And then I told my dad, and he actually gave me the best advice, and I still use it on my husband and my kids today. And ultimately, he said, are they going to pay you, and will it pay your bills? And I said, yes. And he's like, looks like you're moving to Georgia. So, I mean, it's just about putting yourself out there. If I had never moved to Georgia, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have the strengths and weaknesses that I have. I mean, I moved there. I had no family. I had no friends. And now I have a whole life. I met my husband there. Like, you have to take the chances to get the rewards. So.
Awesome. Wow. And Kara had a second question, and it was, did you have to relocate? And Camille just responded that. So that's good. Thank you. Kyle.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you for touching upon that because it is definitely intimidating. Like you guys were talking about before, just finding and like networking, trying to find a position that you actually love and you want to do. But a lot of them aren't exactly, 20 minutes away from your house. That was my question is, did any of you guys relocate after, and how was that process?
So can I follow up to that? So like I said, I moved from New Jersey to Georgia, and I lived in Georgia for 2.5 years. And that was the scariest thing I've ever done, watching my dad get on a plane and leaving me there. So it's scary, but it's possible, and you will be okay if you have to relocate. From Georgia, I actually went to Houston, where I had no family or friends either. And I got another job. I got a huge raise, a better position. From Houston, I went to Pittsburgh. So just being available and willing to locate will get you more opportunities, because then I went from Pittsburgh to New York, and now I'm moving to Connecticut once we go back to work. So, I mean, it's just when you're more available, more is out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Camille. Kyle, did you want to mention anything? Okay, let's move on. We have 2 more questions for our panelists. One is from Julia. Julia, if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I was just wondering, what has been your favorite part about working in like the fashion or textile industry that you feel like you wouldn't have gotten if you were in like a different aspect of the business industry that's less creative?
I mean, I can take that. I mean, the biggest excitement is, being able to talk with the designers and how they come up with the product, and then seeing it, a sample, a year, prior, and then having it on the sales floor, and all that time and energy. Kind of going back to a couple other questions, sustainability is huge for us. By 2030, all of our garments will be all sustainable. We put a huge push into that. It's very expensive, but it's worth it, and we believe it 100%. Kyle, as much as but also, 3-4 times a year, I'm in Spain, and we go through their collection, and I do all the buys for Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, and for all of Mexico. And just if you take the U.S., the Northeast versus Florida versus the West Coast, we're buying different garments, different sizes for different season and different demographic and weather. And to be able to talk with the designers, to kind of tweak things, and to be able to be in another country doing so is absolutely amazing. So, the creative side of retail is absolutely amazing, retail and fashion, and encompassing this all together. I've met some of the most amazing people that I ever had in my entire life that I would never have been able to. So, there's so much passion and excitement and creativity, and that really inspires me to be a part of that. And just, what Camille was saying, I moved like 5-6 times all over this country for my position, and I would not be able to where I am today if I did not do that. So, the passion and the excitement and the relationships that I built is absolutely amazing.
Awesome, thank you. Kyle? Oh, I believe you're muted, Kyle.
Can you answer the question one more time, please?
Let's see here. Julia was asking about what is your favorite part of working in the fashion industry? And if you feel that if you would have not went into this field, working in different aspects of the business that is less creative, how may have that impacted you?
Yeah, so I think Shane hit it right on the head. It's definitely the creativity, but also I think it's driving the culture. Fashion is, everybody looks at each other. What are you wearing? What shoes do you have? What shirt are you wearing? Fashion is one of the biggest ways of like expressing yourself as a human being. So I think that is very exciting as well, and kind of being at the forefront of really driving that culture. I think that's really a tremendous responsibility and privilege that we have working in this industry. And honestly, if I wasn't in this industry, I don't know where I would be. I do work at Citizens Bank, so I probably would just be doing that and hate my job every day. But luckily, I have this company that after work, I can go and work on my passion. So the creativity is just amazing. Working, collaborating with artists, designers, manufacturers from all across the world is an amazing thing. Can be stressful at times, but it's definitely an amazing thing. And honestly, just the fact that we can be, the drivers of the culture is just a huge privilege.
Awesome, thank you. Love the word, passion. That's so important now. And Camille, to wrap up, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so just quickly, like both of them have mentioned, it's the creativity. So a lot of what we do is just spreadsheet driven every day, especially in my role of supply planning. So actually being able to work with the buyers and see the product and put something behind the numbers is so exciting versus I'd probably just be in a bank or some financial institute as well. And, that would be boring. So it's fun seeing the creativity and being able to put something to the numbers and then seeing the finished product at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everyone, let's give a round of applause to our panelists for their participation, their insight, their wisdom that they have shared with us today. We are so grateful for each of their time for coming in. And, as they said, network, reach out, try it, put yourself out there. This is the time, and use the innovations and the tools that are out there available. And we just at TMD College of Business URI want to thank each of our panelists for their expertise and for coming back and pouring into our students. I know that after today, they're going to have a million other questions, and faculty at TMD, we're going to be ready to help them to bring them forth to your companies, hopefully in the future. And, networking will always be important. So again, thank you, everyone. Round of applause. I'm seeing so many chats and they're all saying thank you. Thank you for attending our fashion and style session this morning. I know we have a lot more this afternoon, so be productive, ask questions, and thank you each for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.